Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Demystify Selling with Microsoft. And I'm excited for my guest today, Pat Esposito. He's joining me both as someone that's worked inside of Microsoft and in the partner community. So I'm very excited because I think Pat's going to bring some really interesting viewpoints to our discussion today. So we're going to start with a little bit of background from Pat, but then we're going to get into really thinking about the immense opportunity that surrounds partners when it comes to Copilot. And I'm going to ask Pat to weigh in both from his experience inside Microsoft and in the partner community on how partners can leverage this opportunity. So, with that, Pat, welcome.
Thank you, Rob. Thanks for having me on the show. Really
Yeah, no,
appreciate
I'm
it.
very excited, very excited. So, to start with, why don't you give us a little bit of background on yourself and kind of your experience in the Microsoft ecosystem, and so partners know where you're coming from.
Great. I have been a Microsoft partner, a Microsoft employee, a purple badge, a subcontractor for decades. I often joke when people ask me about Microsoft, have you ever had a regret? And I said, yeah, I should have taken the job offer in 1985. So, been with Microsoft, was part of a lot of firsts, a lot of exciting times, and I just love to share that with my partners today.
I'm excited for that. I think that you're going to bring a really interesting perspective. So, on that, our show is all about helping partners to demystify selling with Microsoft. So, maybe you can tell us, when you were at Microsoft the last go round or the last one or two go round in the organization, and what was your main role?
Yeah, it's great. So, I was a modern work specialist. For decades, I've had a passion around collaboration, about work, around efficiency, helping people. And as a modern work specialist, we were focused on the Microsoft 365 ecosystem and trying to help our clients. Well, my clients in the last several years I was there were all ISVs. So these were
Okay.
software companies who sometimes compete with Microsoft, sometimes they partner with Microsoft. They were across the board. And with many of them, it wasn't just introducing them to the software, but it was really introducing them to the broader Microsoft ecosystem to help them. In a couple cases, I helped partners get their teams through the teams, get their apps through the team's validation and certification process. In
Okay.
other cases, I've helped them get into the Azure marketplace. And it was a really interesting dynamic because of the role that I had, and also really in many cases just get them introduced to the environment, get them introduced to what Microsoft really brings to the table, not just as a customer but also as a partner.
Yeah, so if I'm hearing you right, then you really worked closely with these ISVs or independent software vendors to help them understand and navigate the Microsoft ecosystem, especially when it comes to the commercial marketplaces, whether it's Teams or Azure Marketplace. Did I get that right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think the opportunity for any software vendor today to be a part of the Azure marketplace is just phenomenal. We've seen examples of accelerated opportunities, bigger deals, and quite frankly, selling through that marketplace helps the client acquire your software faster. And that's
Mhm.
something that we all want to do at the end of the day is how do we sell more effectively, right?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah. And I think that, I mean, my experience has been over the last couple of few years that Microsoft is really doubling down on the marketplace. They're really encouraging partners to invest heavily in their marketplace motion. Is that what you're seeing as well?
100%, 100%. Encouraging partners to put more of their offerings in the marketplace, to put their first offerings in the marketplace, and we're seeing a lot of adoption of that. We're also seeing something that I think took a little while, but hearing the clients say, "Is your product in the marketplace? Can I buy through the marketplace?" And I
Mm.
think that is something I only started hearing in the last couple of years, which is really encouraging. It says that all this effort, the systems that Microsoft built, the ecosystem around it is starting to gain momentum, and people are starting to see the value on both sides of the table.
Interesting, interesting. So I'd be curious from your perspective, what were some of the challenges or the reasons that partners weren't ready to make that jump into the marketplace? What were some of the things you think were holding partners back, and have those changed over the last couple of years, or do you still see partners struggling with similar things?
I think there's some fundamental things that remain. And then as time evolves, as technology evolves, we're obviously seeing new nuances and new challenges and new opportunities. I think traditionally, a lot of the, in particular on the software vendor side, but even service providers, a lot of them just don't have grounding with Microsoft. They don't have the experience. They know Microsoft as, I think we use Office, or they've had a very limited experience, and they don't see them as the roles that they can play to help you go to business together. And I think the first thing that all partners have to understand is, what does it mean to me to go to market with Microsoft? That whether you're big or small, well established in your brand and looking for a new venue, or you're a startup and you've got your first product ready to go. There's something in it for everybody, but you have to make that investment to really understand Microsoft. It is an investment. It is time, and there's a lot of general understanding. So I think that's the first obstacle: is just, what does it mean, and
Right.
and what do you do with Microsoft? And Microsoft. Sometimes I joke that partnering with Microsoft is like dancing with a bear. It's a great show, but you got to be a little careful. You can get hurt. They're big. Bears are big, and so. But when you do that, it is a show that people want to see, and it is something that really pays value because of everything that they can really bring to the table. With today, obviously in the land of Gen AI and Copilot, I think we're seeing accelerated opportunities both for Microsoft and its partners. The ecosystem in Gen AI, in particular Copilot, is just massive. The future opportunity, I think every partner in technology in any capacity, whether you're a service provider, software provider, has to be thinking about, what is my slice of the Gen AI pie and how could I do that? And then how do I accelerate that goal with Microsoft?
Yeah, that's so interesting, and I think it ties into, as you're starting to work through this massive opportunity around Copilot, how do you leverage that, and what channels? So the marketplace again being one of those channels. Are you designing an offer that is going to fit into the marketplace and be available through the marketplace? So I think that there's really so tightly tied together is creating these offers, but bringing these offers not just in the traditional, one-on-one sales motion, but on the marketplace sales motion. Because I think the way that, my experience is the way buyers are buying stuff and they're learning is completely different from it was 5, 10, 15 years ago. And the
Absolutely.
marketplace is a big part of that.
Absolutely. I think our buyers are also have doubled down on the work that they do, the due diligence they do before they make an investment, right? They're partnering more with the vendors that they support. Even though there's always been this thought that, hey, if I'm a subscriber in a cloud service, I can change quickly. They're actually looking for long-term relationships. And I think that's really important. And I think the other side of this is that, when we start looking at how to engage, particularly in Copilot with Microsoft, a lot of particular software vendors are focused on bringing AI experiences into their product
Right.
and overlook the phenomenal opportunity of being able to share their data into the Microsoft Copilot ecosystem. So the customers who are using Copilot, because it's part of their Microsoft tenant, are able to leverage all that knowledge and that um, not just the knowledge, but the intellectual property that's locked up in those line of business systems, can now get to it in their collaboration suite as part of an email or a lookup or a Teams conversation. I can actually check the status of my order. I can get details on contracts. I get whatever that line of business system in, as in legal. I can bring that into my collaborative experience, and that is a phenomenal, empowering experience for the user that I think a lot of folks just overlook because so focused on, how do I bring AI into my core product? And quite
Right.
frankly, that extensibility is something that is also a great way for partners to begin their experience with Microsoft. It's not a massive commitment. It's just, hey, let me build a connector. Let me get my data source. Let's get through some of that and begin to get my customers consuming it and create a new revenue stream while you're at it.
I love that, and I love the fact that as you're saying that, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, like line of business, verticals, like if you're in the healthcare vertical or you're in the retail vertical, creating these niche sort of connectors, as you call them, really can pay huge dividends. And if it's not that, if it's part of your sort of DNA as a partner today, and just packaging that in a Gen AI or a Copilot package, that it really does start to unlock some huge opportunities.
Opportunities and new experiences. Those begin to take you into places that you might not have thought about in the past. If I have a connector from my CRM, maybe I have a very unique CRM, very industry specific, sold into a very narrow audience, but extremely specialized. Well, once I begin to get that, bridge that with data, after that, you could think of a roadmap that starts adding new experiences. CRM is a great example. While I'm in my CRM system, wouldn't it be great to start a Teams chat with
Yeah.
my internal resource? But why not with the client? Why not make a phone call using Microsoft Teams from inside my CRM? Right. So it begins to start opening up new experiences. But I do believe starting with data, starting with Copilot is really a great way to make a big impact from your very first engagement.
I think you've got something here. And I think that the other thing that really appeals to me is that you can now have conversations with line of business leaders versus starting in IT. I can now have a conversation with the CRO, or if I'm, in a manufacturing environment, somebody on the line, a manager or an ops person on the line. So it's really interesting to me, the kind of possibilities that start to open up for us as partners to engage our potential clients and to support the Microsoft field in driving Copilot engagements. I think there's just a ton there.
And when you begin to think about it, for all those vendors who have those specialty products, they know their market. They have those business value conversations with the business decision makers. They're not typically selling to just feature function to IT. Now, obviously, you're going to work with them to deploy it, but they really understand the market. And so, if you understand the use cases for your industry, not only can you bring that integration and get value and build that new revenue capability, but you begin to help your clients in ways that they just never dreamed about before. They haven't been able to visualize yet. And that really is bringing thought leadership to the market as well.
I love that. And not only to the market, but to your partners inside Microsoft. So I would imagine back in the day when you're as a seller inside Microsoft, when a partner came to you and said, I've got this idea of doing this with our client base, does that make sense to you? Does it make sense to help you drive these discussions around the technology, in this case, Copilot? But yeah, I'd love to get your take on that. Were you looking for that type of sort of forward thinking from your partners?
100%. When, as a modern work seller,
Hmm.
right, as I was trying to sell the value of the Microsoft capability, and I think keeping it focused on Copilot 365 is critical. But if I'm trying to sell Copilot to a client, there's phenomenal experiences with what it can do out of the box with the email, with the documents, with the chat as a data set coming from the graph.
Hmm.
But when I could say, through our partner, we could bring in data from your core business system and have that feed in as well. Now
Right.
we're getting a different kind of outcome. Now we've elevated Copilot to being not just an engine, but something really providing unique value because it has all of that unlocked knowledge in the experience, in the outcomes, in the prompts that you're feeding in, and the results that you're getting back. And that is something that really takes Copilot to the next level, as well as the seller's ability to satisfy their client. Here's my platform, Copilot 365, but here's how we're going to integrate with your most
Hmm.
important systems through these connectors and capabilities that the vendors are also providing.
I love that. I love
It's a
that.
great partnership. And I think that is what makes the Microsoft partner ecosystem really unique across so much of the technology stack and the vendors who are out there, that ability to really co-sell and solve and bring value, whether you're the subject matter expert, you're bringing that data in, or I'm the platform supplier, that is really a match made in heaven.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. What I'd like to do in these next few minutes before we wrap up is we talked about early on sort of listing in the marketplace. And you said to be able to purchase through the marketplace is a very powerful um, tool for partners to have. But I think that, in my opinion, one of the challenges partners face is they're like, oh my goodness, I don't know how to make it what we call, or Microsoft calls, transactable. But in my world, I tell partners that there's a crawl, walk, run sort of approach here where if you can just get into the marketplace as a contact me offer, that's better than no offer. And then if you can make it co-sell ready, that's better than just a contact me, but maybe not as far down the path as transactable. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on, how do you encourage partners to start that journey? Do you think that they have to go right to transactable, or do you think there's a process that they should go through to be successful and really be set up for success?
I think a lot of that depends on the focus of the partner and their commitment to the Microsoft ecosystem and to leveraging the marketplace. I agree with you. I think a crawl, walk, run is a good idea. Let's get listed. Let's have that offering out there. Let's just get a taste for what's involved.
Yeah.
But I think making it ready, product's got to be ready, having the parts is a change perhaps within the organization if this is the first time you're partnering with Microsoft. So taking it stepwise is going to allow you to deal with the internal changes necessary as well. But
Yeah.
ultimately, making it transactable is when you now have to get your internal sellers to learn how to sell with Microsoft. How
Right.
do we do that? And there's a phenomenal dynamic that happens when we are selling our product and we are helping that Microsoft team hit their objectives. And
Right.
that's the bottom line. Like, hey, I can help you hit your objective, and all I have to do is sell my product, which I love to sell every day. And we're going to do it through this marketplace. And when
Yeah.
you really break it down to that simple, I think focusing on how do we get it transactable has to be the objective. And depending on your commitment level and comfort level, what that kind of crawl, walk, run model looks like, but you could accelerate it pretty quickly.
Yeah, I have to agree. And I think that, I don't think it's any secret that Microsoft is really looking for partners to be in the marketplace first and foremost, but more importantly, to be transactable in the marketplace.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's going to be more and more a focus, in my opinion, that we see from Microsoft for partners.
It's a phenomenal distribution outlet. If you think of it just as another distribution channel, it is a
Yeah.
phenomenal one. It's cost effective and it will accelerate your cycles. And that's really the nice part. And the way Microsoft kind of acts as a broker in between. So we're not worried about, and I think this is one of the concerns folks have. How did I align my contract with the Microsoft Mac? You don't. You don't. And that's the thing I've heard so many times in this conversation, like that just seems too difficult. You don't. Microsoft separates the two streams and they act as the broker, the bank. They're dealing with the transaction and keeping the line so you don't have to. And
Right.
that really is, in my opinion, that is the secret sauce of what makes it fairly simple to transact. So we're not worried anymore. We sell on our contract terms. We sell the way we always did, but we're shipping the product, if you will, or the invoice to Microsoft. And they're going to normalize it into the Mac, and we don't have to worry about that detail.
Right. And when you refer to Mac, maybe you could just, for any of our audience that doesn't know what that term is or that acronym, what that is.
So your Microsoft Azure commitment. And so that is a contract you have with
Right.
Microsoft to purchase services in Azure. And now, if actually we kind of glossed over it, but it's so important. When you purchase through the marketplace, buying my product, buying any vendor product through the marketplace, it counts towards your Microsoft Azure commitment, reducing your obligation to Microsoft. It's a great way to not just build your own internal capabilities using Azure, but also reduce that commitment, ensure that you're going to hit the commitment level you got, in particular with line of business applications, departmental apps. Like, why not put it through that transaction and just decrement your obligation just a little bit? It makes it easy, and CFOs love it.
Right. I think that's a great point to make. It's not only are you solving a business problem for the customer through your application or through your marketplace offer, but you're also helping them achieve their commitment, your customer's commitment to Microsoft. If they have an Azure commit, then this can be used potentially to decrement that commit. So I love that it's twofold for
Yeah, it is.
customers.
It is truly a win-win all around. And I think if whether partners commit to it or not, I think they owe it to themselves to take a look at what that really looks like and what that impact would be on their business.
I love this, Pat. This has been such a great conversation. As we're coming to a close, if a partner has to take one thing away from today, what would that one thing be? If you were to say, hey, if you do nothing else or take nothing else away from today, this is the one thing I'd encourage you to double down on or to
You know,
think about.
I think I would answer that just from the sheer potential. When I look at Microsoft Copilot for 365, not all of the Copilots, not across the entire Microsoft Gen AI ecosystem, but just thinking about it in that one area. And look at the size of if Microsoft were to just sell to their current Teams MAU, monthly users,
Mhm.
$122 billion opportunity for Microsoft. And that generates $9 for every dollar of Microsoft software, $9 for their service partners and ISV partners. That's over $1 trillion.
Right.
I think the thing to take away is what part of that pie do you want? A small slice of a massive pie could be quite tasty.
Right. Now that's so true. I think that this opportunity is just massive. So, Pat, again, thank you very much for joining me today and for sharing a ton of insights with our audience. So, thank you again. So, Pat, before we sign off, if anyone wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to reach out and connect with you?
Best way is to reach me through LinkedIn, Pat Esposito, or my profile, Esposito Pat. Or if you wish, you can email me directly at pespo@bluedogtech, spelled TEC.com.
Excellent, excellent. And what we'll do is I will be sure that we put your email in the show notes so that people can hit you up there or LinkedIn. I imagine you would be
Yeah,
very
you can
successful as well. So great. Well, thanks again, Pat.